Welcome back to the channel, and this is going to be an interesting episode today, and it's not about boxing, it's about football, and it's specifically about, and this is exploding online at the moment, and it's about the interview that took place between Gabriel Clarke and Thomas Tuchel after the England victory against Norway the other night. And it's fascinating, this one, and I think it's worthy of a slightly deeper dive, and I want to give you my take on what's going on here, because I find this quite fascinating, and there's a lot of dynamics to this one. But essentially, the backstory is that Gabriel Clarke interviewed Thomas Tuchel after the match, and he basically questioned the mentality, and said, you know, was an issue with mentality. And Thomas Tuchel pushed back big time on that, quite rightly, because you know, one thing really you could not question about that match was the mentality of the England team. You know, they had to come back from behind, and they really had to dig deep. They were operating in extreme heat and humidity, which was sapping the strength of both sides. I mean, it wasn't a pretty match to watch, partly because of, well, in large part, I think, because of those conditions. But the reaction from Tuchel was interesting, but also the line of questioning from Gabriel Clarke was fascinating as well, and I'm going to come on to that in just a moment. But really, what kind of got this going was the reaction from Thomas Tuchel was a very emotional one. And therein lies, you know, when you look at a good football manager versus an elite football manager, a genius, if you like. And I think of people like Alex Ferguson, who was the United manager for years and years. And again, he was really emotional. And there was a story once about him throwing a football boot and hitting David Beckham in the changing rooms. And these were the types of antics, these are the type of antics that these emotional people get up to. But it's part of their makeup. It's what makes them special. And Tuchel was clearly happy with the result. I mean, we got through to the semi-finals, mission accomplished on that front. But he was using, you know, he's not England manager in the same vein that we had previously with previous managers, where it was all very collaborative and I don't know. It was. I'm an older boy, and I look at all this almost. How would I describe it to you? It's almost like participation trophy. You know, it's like my kids go to school now, and they get a medal for taking part in something. Now, back in my day, there was winners and there was losers, and there was accountability for both. There was none of this, we're going to give you a medal, because it's all about taking part. You know, it's not about winning, it's about taking part. I, for one, believe that is complete nonsense, okay? But the modern era that we live in, the pink and fluffy era that we live in, is very different. And I think some of that has filtered into the media. And going back to Gabriel Clarke's initial questioning, where he was almost looking to get, oh, the boys suffered out there, it was hot, you know, they got through it, we're through to the next round, happy days. And when Tuchel kind of came back and said, no, it wasn't good enough, what you're actually seeing there is a winning mentality. That's exactly what you're seeing there. He's not there to be friends with these players. Yeah, he's not there to put an arm around them and console them and make them feel sorry for themselves in any way, shape. Gareth Southgate, I don't care what anybody says about him, that he was over the top with all of this in my book. He's a great guy, and some would argue he's a great manager, but he's missing the X factor. And what Thomas Tuchel brings to the England team is the X factor. And he was using a public forum there to put a rocket up the backsides of these players. And I thought it was just super intelligent. I thought it was amazing what he did. You then add into the mix that Gabriel Clarke took umbrage with the reaction from Thomas. It wasn't an emotional rant. He did go on. But I think there was a little bit of lost in translation thrown in the mix there. The guy's German, and he's emotional. And, he wears his heart on his sleeve. And he did push back a little bit too much about, the questioning mentality. He wasn't, he did go a bit overboard there. But Gabriel Clarke, who's a seasoned professional, then that was his opener when he was interviewing Jude Bellingham. And Simon Jordan, I think really was just absolutely superb. He was on his radio show, Talk Sport, with Jim White. And those two boys were back and forth and back and forth. I urge you to watch that, because Simon Jordan is probably one of the most articulate people that you'll ever meet. And he's a wordsmith. And he just absolutely laid it all bare what was going on, far better than I can do. And he had the same conversation on Piers Morgan. And what was interesting there was that you've got Piers Morgan, who's a journalist, and they all kind of clique together, these media types, don't they? They all kind of like gang up if they see one of their own getting it in the neck. But Gabriel Clarke deserves to get it in the neck a little bit here, because this really underpins a flaw in English sport, which is almost tantamount to self-harm. We got these guys about to go into a semi-final, and rather than winding his neck in a little bit, he chose to gaslight our star player. And the reaction from Jude Bellingham, and I don't think you could expect anything less from him, because he's just off the pitch, and he's just been hit with, your manager's not happy. What have you got to say about that? No context, yeah. And so you get a reaction from a 23-year-old that was just purely a natural reaction. So I'm sure he's had time to kind of see the full context of this. But, the broader point here is that we've got a society, a culture, that's been driven down this path of what I would call participation trophy. In other words, we're not winners anymore. And that's the reality of it. And you need somebody. I think it's amazing that they got Thomas Tuchel in to manage England, because you needed to parachute somebody in from the outside that's a born winner, that sees through all that guff and actually focuses the minds of these guys on the prize. It's not about the semi-final. It's not about the final. It's about lifting that trophy, which will be only the second time that we've ever done it. And it's been 60 years since we did it last. And so I, for one, think Thomas Tuchel is a genius. I think he's absolutely amazing. He's pulled a blinder here, wearing his heart on his sleeve and giving it to them. And I'm sure we'll go on from strength to strength here. But it really does draw an underscore underneath the media, just how their psyche works. And I think it's ridiculous, if you want to know the truth. And big up to Simon Jordan. He's the man. He is a man. Anyway, that's what I've got to say on the subject. Let me know what you think in the comments. And give us a like, give us a subscribe, and hope to see you on the next one. Take care.